This is a replica of a big sign that used to straddle the roads coming into my hometown when I was a kid. I used to believe what it said because, as far as I was concerned, this was the best town. Right here is where that sign used to straddle Knoll Avenue coming into town. Over here was a vacant lot for years, but before that, when I was a kid, this was a big tobacco warehouse. That was a grocery store over there on that side. I can't remember what was there. And that was a gas station. And now everything's just sort of boarded up. There's a liquor store down on the corner and a convenience store on the other corner. That town that I grew up in doesn't exist anymore. It occupies the same space that it did, and some of the same people are here, but it's a very different place than it was back in the 70s and even in the 80s. This town, like every other town, was founded for a reason. There wasn't just somebody walking across a field one day and said this would be a great place to put a city, so we'll stick a stake in it and start building. Madisonville was originally founded as a farm market. Some decades later, somebody found coal here, and coal became the centerpiece of the economy for a long time. But like a lot of rural places, we became sort of a company town, and we had our industry that our economy was focused on, and that served us well while that industry was going. But all towns are built around a mine, a mill, a factory, a railroad junction, a river port, something like that. And what is a company town to do when the company goes away? And that's happened all over rural America. When the factory shuts down, or the mines shut down, or whatever it is, what does the town do? What does the community do when its reason for existing in the first place goes away? Now, I'm going to try to tell this in a story because stories reach people and facts and figures and data don't so much, although some of it is necessary, and I'm going to sprinkle some of that in here to sort of set the stage. America was founded as an agrarian society. And to this day, 97% of the land of the United States is rural. Population has changed, though. In 1800, 94% of all the people in the United States lived in rural areas. By 1900, that had dropped by a third to about 60%. Somewhere between 1920 and 1940, depending on how you define rural, the United States became a majority urban country, where more people lived in the urban areas than in the rural areas. In 1990, only 25% of the population remained in rural America, and now it's somewhere around 20%. Now, that's relative numbers. Obviously, the population of the country as a whole has grown enormously in that period of time. So when 94% of the people lived in rural areas in 1800, that only amounted to about 5 million people. Today, when only about 20% of the population lives in rural areas, that amounts to about 62 million people. So it's not that we've lost people since the beginning. We've lost our relative population. And with that, with the movement of the majority of people into urban areas, we in rural areas lose some of our political and economic and social and cultural power, because that centers where the people are. And that's why a lot of the United States now, particularly in the South and Midwest, is referred to as flyover territory. There are those who would say that rural America is fading away and we should just let it, because the resources and the effort that's required to keep it going isn't worth it. That aside from the people who have to work in rural areas, farmers, loggers, miners, people like that, everybody else should just move towards the cities where all the economic activity and the opportunity is. Instead of trying to prop up failing economies in rural America should move to where the economy is going better. But this is not really a valid argument in a lot of senses, because farmers and loggers and miners and all those people have families, and those families live in communities. And those communities are made up of good, strong, hard-working, independent-minded people who have been part of the fabric and the strength of this country since the founding. And it's a culture and a way of life that is worth preserving. It's my way of life. It's most of y'all's way of life. Now, the relative population of rural America has decreased with time as people have moved towards the cities. But that has been, for most of our history, it's been a relative decrease. While the majority of people were moving to the cities, the population of rural America was still increasing. It just wasn't increasing nearly as fast as the urban population. But that has changed, and it's changed in a very worrisome way. Over the course of the last decade or maybe two, rural America has actually lost population. We've lost about 4 million people over the course of the last 20 years or so. And you don't really have to be an economist to understand that a decreasing population is not something that any community can survive. It's not just that our population is going down, it's who we're losing. We're losing our young people who leave after they graduate from high school, and most of them don't come back. We're losing their talent, we're losing their energy, their ambition, their sense of optimism. And that loss of the future is devastating to any community. The population of Hopkins County now is about 44,500. In 2010, it was about 47,000. That's a decrease of about 5% in 10 years. Not only are we getting smaller, we're getting older, because as the young people leave, that drives the average age of the remaining population up. Right now in Hopkins County, the median age is about 42. That means half the population is below that and half is older than 42. That's considerably higher than the United States median age as a whole. In 1980, 11% of the population of rural America was over the age of 65. In 2016, that had grown to 17.5%. So 17.5% of the people living in rural America are over the age of 65 now. So we have a population that is declining and aging. And not only are we getting older, we're getting sicker. And part of that is because we're getting older, which makes sense. But a bigger part of that is rural lifestyle, part of which is choices, part of which is culture, and part of which is a lack of options. People in rural America generally have less opportunity to engage in fitness than urban people do, because we don't have facilities and everything is spread out so much. People just don't have time to work out for half an hour before work in the morning or after work. It's more difficult. Nutritionally, we have some very serious problems, some of which is related to choice Rural people, particularly the rural South, but rural people in general, make some terrible nutritional choices. But it's harder in a lot of rural places to get good nutritious food, particularly fresh foods. Fast food restaurants are prevalent. Dollar stores are the main source of groceries for a lot of people. And that means that our people don't eat nearly as well as they should. And that has consequences. 20% of people in rural America are diabetic, which is twice the rate for urban people. 45% of our people have high blood pressure. 75% of rural Americans are overweight, and 40% are obese. And all of that together means that we have much higher rates of cardiovascular disease, pulmonary diseases, cancers than rural populations. And our chronic diseases mean that we live lives that are both sicker and shorter than people who live in the cities. Rural Americans in some places live on average 6 years shorter lives than urban people do. It's 6 years of life lost because, in a lot of cases, because of our lifestyle choices. So all of that sounds pretty bad. But wait, there's more. It gets better. Not only are we older and sicker than our urban counterparts, we're also poorer. The poverty rate in Hopkins County is somewhere around 18%. And for kids, it's 25%. 1 in 4 of our kids lives in poverty. With all of that means for their development, their chances later in life. Taken all together, with our age, our declining population, our increasing poverty levels, that hits on what our Achilles heel is, which is our economic productivity. Because we're losing population, our workforce is smaller than it should be and than it could be. And because of our chronic diseases, the workforce as it is less productive than it could be. So all of that taken together means that we are less productive as a community than we were 30 years, 40 years, 50 years ago. It's not just that the mines are gone. It's that our population is changing as well. And that's 2 blows as to why things are difficult now. All of that taken together means that we have some serious issues. But why try to fix it? Why would anybody think you can fix problems on that scale? Well, you try to fix it because it's the right thing to do. This way of life, my way of life, is worth saving. Growing up here is a big part of who I became, and I think that's true for most people. And we have communities that aren't large, maybe, but they're communities nonetheless. And they're full of good, caring people that care about their communities, they care about each other. Why do it is that we have to. Because if we don't address the issues we have before us, if we try to continue doing things the way we've always done, rural America will not survive. And Main Street USA is going to be lined with boarded up storefronts, abandoned houses, and dollar stores. And that would be a tragedy. I was telling you about that sign earlier. I really believed it. I really believed that I lived in the best place on earth. And actually, if you know people that live here, the best town on earth has become sort of a meme for us. If you look on somebody's Facebook page and see TBOE, everybody knows what they're talking about. They're talking about Madisonville, the best town on earth. I came to learn, obviously, that Madisonville wasn't really the best town on earth. But I thought it was great when I was growing up, because I thought my normal was just normal for people. I thought life for me was how it was for most everybody. And I think a lot of us grow up that way. We think that living in the little shell that we live in is the world, and it's not. And it took me a long time to push back the boundaries of what I thought the world was to see what the world actually is. Today there's 2 kids born in Hopkins County. One of those kids has an opportunity to be whatever they can be, and one of those kids doesn't. One of those kids' chances started being short-circuited before they were even born. And one of those kids is going to face obstacles that the other will never face. And that's just a simple fact of life. And because of it, one of those kids is going to grow up to be a productive member of their communities. And one of those kids is going to have to fight tooth and nail against every obstacle, and the odds are against them in a lot of different ways. And that's part of the story that I'm going to tell going forward, because we can't leave that other kid behind. We need it. We have a lot of benefits here in this community that other parts of rural America may not have. We're blessed with a lot of really good, really active community organizations dedicated to helping our people and advancing our communities. We've got a lot of good community leaders, church leaders, business leaders, political leaders who realize that the future is in front and not behind us. Next time, I'll be talking more about where we are today and some of the things that are going on and some of the things that we need to do to try to find our way towards a better future. Appreciate you watching. Y'all take care.